Okay, this recipe is for meatballs. So in my bowl I have 250 grams of minced beef. It doesn't have to be beef, it can be lamb or chicken, whatever mince you want, and 250 grams of sausages which I've skinned. And I use sausages or sausage meat because they help to hold the mince together. I've also added a teaspoon of cumin to mine. You can add garlic, oregano, basil, mixed herbs, or you can leave them plain. If you've got flavoured sausage meat, it might be better to leave them plain. And what you need to do with this to start with is just put your hand in the bowl and squeeze these together until your mixture is all one colour. And it takes a bit of time to work this through, but it really is the easiest way to use your hands. I haven't added any salt and pepper because there is salt and pepper already. There is seasoning in the sausage meat. So I'm just going to keep squeezing this until it all comes together into one large lump. And I can't see any streaks of sausages because when you start you can see the colour is not even, and you just have to keep going until it's done. Okay, when your sausage and mince have been mixed together until they are pretty much one colour, you can then shape these into meatballs. So you just take a small amount in your hands, roll it into a ball and put it onto a plate. And I like to do mine roughly golf ball size. I don't like to make them too big because they take a long time to cook. But you should be able to get, as you can see, quite a few meatballs from this mixture. If your sausage meat or your mince is a little bit wet and it sticks to your hands and doesn't roll very easily, you can just try damping your hands with a bit of water or a bit of flour, and it will help to get your meatballs shaped. But you need to shape all of the mixture before you start cooking. Okay, I've shaped all my meatballs and I've managed to get 16 meatballs made. So I'm going to start cooking these in a frying pan over a gentle heat. And I've just added a tablespoon of oil to my pan to start with. It's not a lot of oil, but I just want to start the meatballs off to make sure that they don't stick. So the meatballs go into your frying pan, and you will get more oil out as they start to cook. You'll get more fat from the sausage meat and the mince, but just arrange them all in your pan. And if you've got a large enough pan to do them all in one go, that's brilliant. And you're just going to leave those to start cooking and to start browning. We need the meatballs to brown on the first side before you try to move them. If you try and move your meatballs too quickly, what happens is they stick. So you must allow your meatballs to start cooking underneath before you try to move them. Once the meatballs have started to cook, you'll see them sizzling around the bottom, and you can turn them, excuse me, and you can see that one is nicely browned on the bottom. So they just need to be turned so that you can brown them off on all sides. You can turn them completely over if you wish, or you can just turn them a little bit, but they do need to be turned more than once so that you have browned them off completely on the outside. And you need to give them maybe 3-4 minutes on each side before turning. Depends how hot your pan is. but you need to get them as brown as possible all the way round, and the caramelisation of the meat, the browning of the meat, helps to give them flavour. So there we go, last one turned, and then again you just leave them until they're ready to be turned again. To go with the meatballs, I'm going to do a tomato sauce. So I just need to skin some garlic and roughly chop that, and at the same time I am going to chop an onion. So my rubbish is going onto a paper towel, and I'm just going to do the garlic quickly, remembering ridge hold through your fingers to chop, then turn it round and roughly chop it the other way. And the same with the second one, ridge hold through your fingers to start the chopping and cut the other way. If you want to, you can then just use your knife and make that a little bit smaller if some of the bits look rather large. And the onion, remember, we want to keep all the rubbish out of the way, so cut your onion in half. If you only want to use half an onion with a can of tomatoes, that's fine, but it's easier to peel the skin off after you've cut it in half. You can just take off down to one clean layer, and if you take off one end of your onion, you can then cut through again using ridge hold. Don't go fully to the end of the onion. You can see I'm not cutting through the root, and I'm not cutting right off the end of the onion. If I pick that up, it's still held together at this end, and then I'm going to turn it round. I'd normally work this way, but if I turn it this way, you can see, swap to claw grip and slice across the onion to get nice, small, fine pieces of onion. When you get towards the end, if you can't hold it quite so well, you can just turn your onion and use as much as you want. So I have half an onion and some garlic. Okay, the meatballs are still cooking, and I've got a small saucepan here with just a tablespoon of oil in to start frying my onion. So I've turned the heat on, I've added a couple of bits of onion to this, and I'm just going to wait until that onion starts to sizzle. And as soon as I can see that it's starting to sizzle, I will add the rest of the onion. But I don't want to put all of my onion into cold fat. So hopefully you can see it is starting to sizzle around the outside of the onion. There are small bubbles there. So I'm just going to put the onion in. I'm not putting the garlic in to start with because the garlic can easily burn. So I'm going to just cook that onion. Just going to fry that off until it's changed colour and it has gone clear. So it's just going to take a couple of minutes to start my onion cooking. Okay, the onions are starting to cook. They're starting to change colour, so I'm just going to put the garlic into the pan and cook the garlic for a couple of minutes in with the onion to make sure that the garlic is cooked as well. Okay, once your onions are cooked and you've cooked the garlic for a couple of minutes, you can tip in a can of chopped tomatoes. And I like to add a little bit of water as well. So I half fill my can with water and rinse it round, and I'm going to put that in as well because I'm going to finish cooking the meatballs in this tomato sauce. And because the meatballs are in quite a wide pan, I don't want to lose all the water. So I need this to come up to the boil. If you wish, you can add some basil or oregano or other flavourings to your tomato sauce. But for this one, at the moment, I'm not going to add any tomato puree. I'm just going to leave this to come up to the boil, and then once it has boiled, I will pour it over the meatballs. Okay, the tomato sauce is bubbling. It's come up to the boil. It's still very thin, but what I'm going to do is pour this into the pan with the meatballs and allow the sauce to evaporate and the meatballs to finish cooking together. So I just need to make sure that none of the meatballs are stuck, which they're not, and I'm going to leave that to cook down and evaporate a bit. So the meatballs will finish cooking off in that sauce, and as you can see, because I haven't moved them, I've allowed them to cook before I've tried to move them, allowed them to really cook through on one side. They're looking fine, they haven't broken up at all, and I still have 16 meatballs in my pan, but I just need this to bubble away gently and evaporate some of that liquid off and just finish cooking the sauce down. Okay, the sauce of the meatballs has thickened and I've turned it off, but you can see it's a much thicker sauce now. There's not as much of it. So the meatballs and tomato sauce are ready to serve, and you can serve those with pasta, with rice, or with potato wedges, whatever you actually like.